Before we started this, Craig was letting us all know that now that Klopp's dropping out, we've got another man to take the throne, the top 3 manager.
Another apex predator.
Another one. Big Ange could be the guy to take Spurs from 4th, 5th into 3rd place, maybe challenge.
Not only is he the best drinking partner that you could ever imagine, he's also going to be the 3rd best manager in the league. Come on, man.
I'm just saying, mate, that there's an opportunity there, right? If I'm Ange, you're going to be looking at it thinking one of the greatest managers in the world is leaving this league right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a 3-horse race all season for this title.
Yeah.
He leaves. We don't know what Liverpool looks like next season. We don't even know who the gaffer is. We know Arteta's going to be there and Pep's going to be there battling it out. You know, the master, the sensei versus the student. They're going to be going at it for the next couple of seasons now that Klopp's gone. There's room for another manager to insert themselves in that conversation. Pochettino don't look like he's in a conversation for Europe, like Europa, let alone top 4. Ten Hag looks like he's going to get the boot. So that leaves potentially Emery, who we kind of need to stop sleeping on because it looks like even with the result against Arsenal, he's trying to prove something here. And Ange, who is an ambitious manager, has won things. All right, the leagues aren't the best that he's won them in, but he's won things and he's used to winning things. He's ambitious. And like you said off camera, the Spurs team are a pretty decent team in terms of the set of players they have. Well, the 11 anyway that they have, right? So I think, why not? You should be looking at next season saying, if we can get 4th or even 5th, next season we need to go up a level. We need to insert ourselves in the top.
I'm surprised you're talking about this, though, after you've just been humped 4-0.
But this is, I was going to ask you.
It's a bad day at office.
Did you feel this way when you had Conte? Did you feel like he could step up? Because you had more points at this point in the season when you had Conte in charge. So
nah, I didn't feel like it because I just didn't like, first of all,
the football, the energy around the club when he was there. It just didn't seem long term. It felt very negative. It felt like nothing's building here. Whereas when we're looking at Ange, yeah, we're leaking goals for fun and we're playing this kind of crazy football, but I still see there's a foundation there and something to build on. There's an identity. We can go further.
What is that? Like, because I promise you, I'm not bantering you.
Yeah, go on.
Like, what is that foundation you're looking at? Because I'm looking at the top 6 record that you've got.
Yeah.
It's not good reading.
Yeah, but
it's not good at all.
Can I tell you something? Pochettino never had a good top 6 record, you know.
But you need that.
When he was there.
Mate, to finish 4th, you need to be the teams above you.
But this is my point. Pochettino never had that, and we challenged for a title under Pochettino against you lot.
Yeah.
And we never had a good top 6 record, to be honest. At home it was decent, but away from home it was terrible. I just think this season is the season that Spurs are ironing out the kinks. You're trying to figure out who's actually gone.
Something that was said from Newcastle fans after playing you lot. So just for context, Spurs had pretty much full strength first team. Newcastle had out Nick Pope, Trippier, Lascelles, Botman, Target, Tonali, Miley, Jolan and Willock, Almiron, Wilson. All could play first team football for us. We won 4-0 and it tactically, and I've been impressed with Big Ange this season, actually. I think tactically he's been good at times, but Eddie Howe absolutely annihilated him tactically. And he played, it was actually really clever. Even in the warm-up, we played a different system to what we actually played in the game. Like, I think Eddie thought, I've got an answer for this. And it wasn't a normal system. We played with a 5 at the back when we didn't have the ball and basically pushed our wingers up when we had the ball. And that meant we'd obviously overload. We had like 27% possession and won 4-0. And obviously, we got to thank the individual brilliance of Gordon and Isak, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have won the game the way we did. They took us over the line. But it was the first game where I've watched a Big Ange side and thought, naive, and you've been...
Naive is the word. Naive is the word. Mate, it's the way you play football. I know it's fun, but like... You remind me of a guy who goes to the gym and doesn't do leg day. Yeah. Like you just miss the fundamentals. And I feel like you show your knickers to everyone. Yeah. Do you remember the Chelsea game? You boys,
I remember it.
They were queuing up on the halfway line
with 9 men
behind them.
Yeah, 9 men.
Yeah, but then what I will say, I feel what Eddie Howe's done is basically just given everyone in the Premier League a blueprint and how to stop
think he did.
They did the same thing every time.
Wait. Let's pause because we've been playing like that all season. Newcastle, credit to them. You battered us. You took advantage of that. Eddie Howe did his thing. Cool. But there were individual mistakes that cost us, and it were coming from one player. Yeah. All 3 of the individual mistakes for those first 3 goals. He had a bad day at the office.
He looked like breakdancing at one point.
No, he literally was. He literally was breakdancing. It was horrible. I thought I was watching You Got Served.
I do think that, like...
It's
I just think that it was a harsh... Like, you're not going to play Isak on form every week, right? So not everyone can expose it.
Yeah.
But, like, let's talk about top 4 this season. Aston Villa, really strong result, but you are both kind of similar. You will win one really emphatically and everyone's like, it's theirs, and then the other one will throw it away and then vice versa. So
but I think the difference between us and them is, and this is why I'm giving Ange grace, is this is his first season. Not even like at Spurs, because we usually say this is the manager's first season in a Premier League club. This is his first season in the Premier League, full stop.
Yeah.
So when I look at it from that perspective, I'm like, he's done a good job this season. He's had to eradicate the football we've been playing for the last 3 years, which is sit back, counter. He's completely flipped it. We're like, look at the game against Newcastle. We're like 70% possession against most teams. All right, you're right. It leaves us vulnerable at the back. But he's had to flip a whole, what's the word I'm looking for? Ethos, everything. He's
losing Harry Kane is the thing I'm impressed by most. The fact that you lost Harry Kane, I was thinking mid-table, right, immediately, because losing 30 goals in a Premier League season is massive.
Yeah.
The way you've dealt with that is really impressive.
I think now it's just about, I don't like to write off seasons. Every season I want to try and accomplish something and try and do something. But the reality is we went out all the cup competitions early that we was in this season and we're just in the league. I think this is a season for Ange and Spurs to just iron things out, figure out who's here for the long term, who fits into this system. It's almost like a 9-month season trial to see who is actually here and who is required for his system and who plays. Next season is when I really judge him.
What I would say though about an elite manager, you look at what Emery's done against Arteta, protege, and then this guy coming in. What they do is in games and even game to game, they'll go, do you know what? My system hasn't worked against a top 6 team. So what I'm going to do in the next game is I'm going to set up completely differently. Conte had a brilliant moment in a Chelsea career when we were absolutely getting done actually by Arsenal, where he completely flipped it and we changed the system and then we went on this beautiful run. What I'm worried about Ange is that he isn't evolving tactically.
He's
and I think
I
think the best managers, what they do is they say, look, I've got this system that I know that works. Against the bottom 14 teams, I know that's going to absolutely be brilliant. We're going to win a lot of games. We're going to score a load of goals. But when it comes down to it against the big games, what I need to do sometimes is shut up shop or maybe tweak the system slightly or do something where you're like going, I know that Gordon is going to make that left-hand side run. I know exactly what he's going to do. There's going to be a ball that goes over the top. Gordon is going to run onto it. I can tell you now as just a casual fan, I know that's what Gordon's going to do, left, right and centre. But Ange hasn't been able to do that.
The amount of 1v1 and 2v2 moments that we created through that, like we exposed that.
And that's a simple thing. Do you know what I mean?
It's always going to look bad coming off the back of the result on the weekend. It's always going to look bad there. But I've got to stick up for Ange. Like, I think he's a little bit harshly done by at times. The amount of people that have portrayed the narrative that he does have no plan B. It's the high line or nothing. I can think of 2 matches we sat and watched live here. The North London derby earlier on in the season, I thought Tottenham started off bad and Ange's in-game adjustments really, really helped. Also, do you remember the Man City match? We were looking at that match after I think like 15, 20 minutes or so and we were thinking Spurs might get absolutely battered here. Do you know what I mean? And Ange made in-game adjustments in that match. So I do think that he's got the capabilities to do so. I just think there's so many factors, like Craig said, as to this is a transitional season for him.
Question for Craig then, because we were in a very similar position 12 months ago as what you are now. It's exciting. You got this new manager. He's revolutionised the way you play and it feels like you're watching a different team. You could go into the Champions League or you could go into the Europa League. I know naturally Champions League's where it's at. For Newcastle though, it fucked our entire season. Like even Arsenal we're seeing have these massive European.
Yours was more the injuries though, rather than that.
But the injuries came from not having the depth of squad.
It stresses a squad, doesn't it? And you've said already that behind your first 11, there's a gap.
Exactly.
There is a gap.
And that gap gets exposed in the Champions League in a way it doesn't in Europa League. And it's a lot easier to incorporate some of the lesser players in Europa League games because you know that you can still compete. Whereas in the Champions League, it's first team or nothing. Are you worried about, would you potentially rather take Europa League and grow slower?
No way.
Because what happens potentially is you go into the Champions League, it's all exciting, and then by January the season's over. This is what happened.
Sorry, it don't matter. We need to take Champions League just purely because like the stadium we have, it requires Champions League football. We built it to be a Champions League side.
It requires fucking Beyonce, mate. That's what it needs.
And you can make the jokes about that, but the money we're actually earning off of those things is going to help our club in the future. It allows us to reinvest. That's why you're going to see over the next few seasons with this financial fair plays being like strict, it actually helps a team like Spurs, a team that actually is generating profits and finding ways to generate profits outside of football and reinvest it into the club. I think at the moment we've got, we're allowed, I think it's like 12 events in the year outside of football to having the stadium with the council. We've just applied to make that, I think, 32 to bring in more revenue.
You must be buzzing, man. That's what
Celia and Taylor Swift live.
We found a venue for that kick-off.
Brian's hoping that they ease the fucking PSR fund so that they can finally get Arctic Monkeys at St James's Park. You boys are sitting here thinking one day we'll get Beyonce at Stamford.
I can't wait.
It's what you want.
As long as we make the money, and we can invest it, and I think that's what we're going to do this summer. Like, we've had record profits again, year on year on year. We're making record profits as a club, and it allows us a bit more to reinvest in this team, which allows us to compete a bit more.
What about Levy though?
And now, a word from our sponsors. Right, we are putting a accumulator on StakeMate on the kickoff this weekend, and the beauty of StakeMate is you can have a little group feature with you and all your mates in, where you can all put a few quid in, put an accumulator on together and build it together, and then you all win together. We've created our own little kickoff group. Josh, who do you fancy this weekend, mate?
So, Aston Villa have got Bournemouth. I think that's pretty easy for Villa to get the result, so I'm going to go with the home win.
My pick for who to back this weekend is going to be Luton at home to Brentford. I think Luton are going to stay there or thereabouts and still be in with a chance of survival on the final day. And I look at their fixtures, this is one of the more winnable ones.
I'm looking at West Ham away at Crystal Palace. As much as I actually think it could go either way, the odds are pretty good for West Ham, so I'm going to jump on that one.
Yeah, that really puts the odds right up, doesn't it?
Yeah, I like that one. I think both of those teams, win one, lose one. Palace have just won, West Ham have just lost. It makes perfect sense.
And in terms of the other big games, we got Liverpool and Arsenal looking in a bit of stress at the moment. Arsenal playing Bayern Munich midweek, then they've got Wolves away. I don't mind Wolves getting a draw out of that.
I don't mind that at all. And do you know what? It would be easy just to lump on Arsenal here, wouldn't it?
I think that when you look at that one of those two teams in Arsenal or Liverpool, in my opinion, are going to drop some points. When I'm looking at it, I think Arsenal coming back from Germany and then going away at Wolves have got the harder game. I don't think they'll get beat, but I think that could be a draw there.
The odds right now, 76-1, lads. Not bad. So with what we've put on as a group, it's £1,147 returned. If we win big. And if you and your mates want to do this, it's simple. Even idiots like us can do it. All you've got to do is click the link in the description below and use TKO5 as the code, and you'll get a free £5 bet when you download the app. And don't forget, you must be over 18, living in the UK, and always gamble responsibly. But for now, enjoy the video.
So Levy is potentially offering a stake of the club. Are you worried about that? Like this guy that's been transformative for your football club?
They don't find it transformative.
What one trophy in 20-something years?
We're talking about a Man United style deal where you have multiple owners basically owning shares in the company.
I
celebrate
would be a
that.
bit worried.
Bring someone else in.
I would be a little bit worried because when I'm looking at Spurs at the minute, I think that you'd be able to identify there's key areas that if you are, I think even if you're just to sustain next season, like Ange will do what he's doing, the players that have played well this season, I can see you continuing, but you'd think that you need another centre back in there. There's a couple of areas on the pitch where you think you'd need investment, and also like you don't, it can work either way. Look, you go the Chelsea route, you spend big money on players that are unproven. It doesn't work a lot of the time, but also you can't rely on pulling out Vicarios and Van der Vens always. More often than not, you make those sort of signings. This time it's turned to gold almost. They've been really good signings, but more often than not, you can't guarantee. So I think
did his big, that crook Paratici. He did
he's
well.
Passing names through the fucking prison.
Yeah, how does it work?
Can I say something just quickly on that point? Because you're saying Ange and next season we can just like keep it the same. Ange has already come out. He did an interview a couple of weeks ago saying that next season he wants to try and win the league.
But do you?
That's what he's trying to say.
Do you think he can even potentially push for that without significant investment?
No.
Like I think.
No.
And I know
I think he's living in a dream world. But
everything is.
I don't think he's totally in a dream world though, because he said something really telling in an interview not long ago where he went, if players want Champions League football, don't come to Spurs. And I was like, fucking hell.
He said that.
He doesn't give it. He went, what I want is players who understand what Spurs are, what Spurs are trying to become. If you're just expecting Champions League football every single season, this isn't the club for you, because we can't guarantee that. And we want players who understand the philosophy of the club and want to build with us and invest in the project. And I just thought, as much as, it may not be the best thing to say in terms of lie, like but if you lie to a player and be like, hey, it's Champions League every season, and then you don't deliver that, you've got upset players who don't understand where the hell the club is, where they are in their own career, they're delusional. You want players living in the real world. And I thought that was a very smart thing to come out with.
I agree.
I like your point generally in that you're backing your manager and you see that there is upwards mobility in the league, which there absolutely is. I just think putting him in the level of the Peps and the Artetas is unfair. Like you're saying that he's going to be the next level. I never said he's
on their level.
No, but you're saying he's the next.
He could be the third guy.
I'm saying he should insert. I think he should try and insert himself in the conversation next season, because what other managers other than you got Emery there, right? Because these are the two managers fighting for Champions League right now. Klopp is leaving. He's leaving a decent foundation for the next manager, right? There's some good young players coming through there. They've got talented players. Luis Diaz, cool. However, we don't know who that next manager is. We don't know what the philosophy is, and we don't know what this looks like for Liverpool now going forward. History tells us that usually, no matter how good the players are there or whatever the state of the club is, when a manager leaves, there's a transitional season for that team. So for us to now just expect Liverpool to once again be right up there with Arsenal and Man City, to me, history suggests that isn't going to be the case. It could be, don't get me wrong, there's good players there, but some of them are aging as well. Some of their best players like Van Dijk and Salah, they're on their way out. They're gone soon. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what Liverpool looks like in the next few years. So I need to look at the other teams around and go, well, who then is then going to be the third runner behind these two teams, Arsenal and Man City, if it isn't Liverpool? Who is it? It's either Villa or Spurs. It isn't going to be Chelsea. Pochettino's miles off it.
Newcastle.
I was actually just thinking it's going to be Howe, it's going to be Ange, or obviously it's going to be Unai Emery.
See, it's funny how things change. Just a couple of weeks ago, we weren't talking this brightly about Newcastle. It was looking bad. People were questioning Eddie Howe.
I honestly, I think you got to start looking a bit more over your shoulder than looking in front of you. Mate, this season, I look at the way the
I'm a glass half empty guy rather than half full.
Yeah, mate, there might be a hole in the bottom of your glass though, because if you look at the league, I feel like you've got three teams that are clearly a cut above the rest in Arsenal, City, Liverpool, right? I think we'd all agree that. Below that, I was like looking at it a few weeks ago, I was like, you know what, Villa, Spurs, yeah, they're comfy. But there's still a 10-point gap between Spurs and Newcastle. But Newcastle, like fucking... A few weeks ago, we were talking about you boys and going like, oh, it's fucked. We need to get rid of Howe. Do we need Mourinho? Does the project even work? Suddenly you're in sixth place. I look at that gap and I'm like, everyone's shit after that. If you're there, if Newcastle managed to get themselves in sixth place...
Well,
I think what Spurs need to be a bit more careful about is there's some sleeping giants in this league who might just wake up. I'm looking at Chelsea, I'm looking at Man United, I'm looking at Newcastle. And you've got a lot of tough games coming up, Spurs. You've got to play...
Are you talking about this season or not even...
No. Do you think a 10-point gap could be bridged this season?
I don't think it can be bridged, but I think you could be looking at the end of the season going, hang on a minute.
Well, then that means we can catch Liverpool because we're 11 points behind Liverpool, according to your theory.
Yeah, no, but my theory is based on my theory is based on the fact that you've got to play Liverpool, City and Arsenal, and the way that you played at the weekend, the way you showed your knickers to Newcastle.
I'd rather do that now. Get out of the way.
But my point is...
Get out of the way. If it means we lose 4-0, but when we go play really well against those three.
From that.
The point I'm trying to make is, by the end of this season, you might only be a couple of points ahead of those boys. You might only be a few points ahead of Chelsea. And then come the summer, you're going to spend some money. United are going to get a new manager. And by next season, rather than you looking up and going, well, you know what, we could be the ones to get close. You could be going, what the fuck? United are actually good. Chelsea are actually good. Newcastle are actually having a good season. And while they've all had a shit season, you might only finish a few points ahead of them this season. And then they might get their act together and come chasing you boys down.
Yeah, but you're forgetting one thing. We wasn't even supposed to be where we are right now. Ange has overachieved according to everyone's predictions.
How much better?
People, who was it? Your guy, the flipping idiot, Paul Merson, said we'd finish bottom half of the table. Like, what was the, like, where's that gone? Now that we're challenging for Champions League, everyone's like hiding and not saying anything anymore.
Here's my question. How much better can you get next season? And how much better can they get? And how much better can Newcastle get? And how much better can United get? Because they're going to fucking jump.
No,
they're going to make 10, 15-point jumps. I don't think you guys are going to get that much better.
I don't know about 10, 15 points. Look, Newcastle can definitely get better because they've had a lot of injuries. Chelsea, I would bet and say they're going to get better because I rate Pochettino as a manager. And this is the season, him trying to figure it out.
How much better can you get?
Man United, let me just finish. Man United, they're going to have a whole new manager next season. They're going back to square one, it looks like.
You never know what's going to happen.
Transitional with them.
Yeah.
I think based off what we've done this season, I think we can get better, 100%. I think we've got a lot of young players. Van der Ven's young. A lot of these players, Udogi's young, Sar's young. A lot of these players are young players. Brennan Johnson, we can get better. That's just like... Can I
make the case for Eddie Howe? I've been dying to say...
Sorry, go on.
Sorry.
No, the fact of... It's 10 points right now.
Yeah.
You've just listed some really hard fixtures out. I don't think Newcastle's are quite as bad as that by any means.
Not.
And the fact that we've had basically half the squad injured for the vast majority of the season, and what we did against Spurs has given me a lot of confidence back in Eddie after 3 wins and a draw. We're looking like our old self, even though we're playing half the team, more than half the team is second string. I feel like that shows if we get to within 5 points of Spurs by the end of the season, we should finish ahead of them next season if signings are roughly what we expect them to be. It makes me feel more confident now in Eddie again. It makes me think, actually, no, you are getting them back. We've had a wobble. It was really bad injuries, but you can do this. And it's dependent, though, on keeping Bruno, Gordon and Isak. If any of those 3 players go, we can forget finishing above Spurs, because I don't think Spurs are going to lose an important player the way we might because of the FFP.
Also, can I just make that point, although you just remind me, very good points. We actually had an injury-ravaged season as well. People forget
100%.
We did. When we was on top form and we were top of the league and we were like playing amazing, that game against Chelsea.
No Maddison.
Flipped everything. Van der Ven. These are like 2 of our best players. Son went off to the Asian Cup of Games for a month. We lost Basuma and Sarr for a whole month for the African Cup of Nations. Basuma missed like 4 games before that because he had 2 red cards. Like, we've had a up and down season as well. I think our season only really got back on track after February 1st, when all the Asia Games and the African Cup of Nations.
When you sold Derek Dyer, basically.
Yeah. Never played one season, but I like the joke. But once we got all our players back, we never got back into the rhythm. It just felt like, it's like what we were saying earlier about, like I said, with Mo Salah. He's come back from Africa Cup of Nations and he just hasn't looked the same. And I don't like that. Next season, like I said, hopefully, just like for you guys, less injuries, less disruptions, and then see where we go. Because when I look at Arsenal this season, Timber, big injury, yes, like you said, that would probably have solved your left back problem. Partey, all right, he hasn't been there, he's come in and helped out, cool. But you haven't had a lot of big injuries to disrupt your season. There's other teams that have had that. Do you get what I'm saying? So for us to still be in this top 4 conversation, like I said, when no one gave us a chance, to me, I think Andrew's done a decent job this season in his first season.
The problem I think you're going to have going forward, Maddison's going to get injured again. Like that's not bad luck. If
it's a reoccurring thing.
It's a reoccurring thing. He's going to miss 15 Premier League games next season. He has done every season. He will do next season. Son, you're squeezing a lot of juice out of that orange, mate. And at some point, he's going to be
getting older.
Yeah, you're going to need to find a world class forward.
Yeah.
Who's at the level of Son, because he saved you this year. Harry Kane went fucking flying off into the sunset to go and win nothing plus a fucking cannon-shaped top scorer medal.
But so are they.
Germany.
If they lose Isak, they're going to have to find the same thing.
Okay, and who do you
Man
think's
United
better
don't even
equipped?
have one.
Who do you think's better equipped? Them with all the oil money in the world, or
They
you?
can't
Or
spend
you?
it.
Yeah, listen. If they're going to sell one of their forwards that they need to replace, then they can spend it. So going by your logic, they only need to buy one if they sell one. If they sell one, they got money.
We got money.
Enough?
I don't know, but we
you
made a lot
got a lot
of outside of... Look, this is what I'm saying. With these things in place, obviously I don't have the numbers and stats in front of me, but like I said, with these financial fair play restrictions in place, we are one of the clubs in the Premier League that are making a lot of money off of this stadium. A lot of money.
You're one of the best positioned clubs in the entire league.
But my question is, do you think with the setup you got, and by the way, I really rate your director of football. You know, he's doing a lot of good work in jail, but he's not in jail. I'm joking. But I guess the question, I think you've got to do, and I agree with you, you're well equipped. I agree with you financially, you're good. I think you've got good players in that squad. I think what you've got to do is one of the hardest things in football, which is find a world class forward.
Yeah,
and that's going to be the question with Spurs over the next 2-3 seasons.
But then the other teams you said that we should be looking at that could threaten our position, they could lose their world class forward in Isak potentially. Chelsea don't even have a world-class forward, and neither does Man United. So, like, where they have to find one as well. What forward have you got?
Cole Palmer? How dare you?
After one season, you're going to say Cole Palmer is world class.
Did you watch the game?
Will Cole Palmer repeat this season's numbers next season?
Hypothetically, you're saying.
Yeah, but then hypothetically, you're saying about losing. I don't think you're going to lose any of them. I don't think you are.
Well, then even Isak, really and truly, the only player out of those teams that is actually proven world class is Son. Really and truly, that has done it for years, year on year out. One golden
doing that.
Yeah, but from this point onwards.
No, of course. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of the other teams that he said could threaten us don't have world class forwards.
If Newcastle keep Isak, that would be then I mean, I think when we talk about world-class forwards, Isak is a world-class forward, right?
Yeah, you can see it. You can see it.
If statistically, there's a whole article just come out about how he's actually better than Haaland right now in terms of just
Minutes,
all-round play, goals,
yeah.
all of that. And he's playing for Newcastle, right? So let's not forget.
Do you think he is, though?
If you're talking to me about who's the better footballer, I don't think it's even a competition.
No.
But we're talking about goal scorers. It's impossible for me to compare Isak, who's getting fed balls from Almiron, and Jacob Murphy.
Haaland did it at Dortmund as well, though.
Yeah, but Haaland was still getting fed balls by better players than that. Like
Sancho.
Anthony Gordon right now is like his main offering, but it's still, look, let's not kid ourselves. There's still so many Steve Bruce players in this team. The fact that Isak is even being talked about in the same conversation as Haaland shows if we put him in an Arsenal team and a Liverpool team, he would be doing serious damage.
Injury problems as well, though, like you said about Maddison. He's got his injury problems.
I guess to sum up my point, if I was to gamble on whether Newcastle or Spurs will finish higher next season, bear in mind we started this conversation saying, can Ange catch up with the top managers in the league?
Yeah. You'd go for Newcastle.
It's really tight for me.
Do you know,
I think that's more of a conversation than can Spurs start catching up with City and Arsenal.
What about Eddie Howe now, by the way? If by some chance we make top 6, which given what Eddie Howe's been through this season, do you know when Jose Mourinho got second with Man United, he went, this is actually my best achievement in my whole life, and you don't realise why, but you'll realise one day. And we kind of look back at it and go, yeah, I understand now. I feel like looking at Eddie Howe this season, if he gets top 6 with the amount of the Premier League record of injuries, fucking hell, that'll mean that back-to-back seasons, he's done 4th and 6th, which makes us now, there's a big 6 conversation of who's really the big 6. Are we now in the big 6? Because we've done it back-to-back. If we do it again a 3rd season in a row.
I'm sorry, but
we're
I disagree,
big 6.
Brian. I think this is a bad season for Eddie Howe and Newcastle. I think for Eddie Howe, this is a bad season. I know there was a lot of injuries, and I totally accept that.
Most in the league. Most in the league by a mile.
I know that, but that unfortunately, that is football. Unfortunately, it happens, and you got to be able to deal with it some way, shape, form. This is really bad injuries. I'm not downplaying.
Yeah.
But it's the Champions League campaign that really, for me, just shows how bad of a season this could have been for Newcastle. I think the way you went out of the Champions League was bad.
They had the group of death. They had the hardest group in the entire Champions League.
Step up to the plate.
Right.
How many games did you win in the group?
Talk about the PSG penalty.
Let me land, right?
Go ahead.
We smashed PSG 4-1, right?
That was a good result.
That was basically like one of the best memories in St. James's Park ever.
Remember
but
that
also, we were also playing against AC Milan. We got a really good point against them in our first game. After that, so we smashed PSG, so we're 4 points in, and then the 4th game against Dortmund, we slipped up.
Where did you finish in the group, though?
We finished bottom, right? Now, I know that, but when you look at it, Dortmund and PSG are still in it, right?
Yep.
So, like, we're going out to teams that are legit threats in the competition. They're very good teams. And
talk about the penalty, and just get the penalty out there.
It was the last minute, right? We were beating PSG in the final minute, so we would have won back-to-back wins against them. We get a bullshit penalty against us, and then mentally, we'd gone, right? In the Champions League, I think we knew. And we'd given so much, and I think for Eddie Howe's first ever season in the Champions League, I think he did us proud, and they did us proud, and the injuries are the main factor of why the season's collapsed, because once you start losing those games through injuries, mentality then goes, and only now is Eddie managing, and I'm surprised, because once you lose the players, which he did a little bit there, it's hard to get them back, and that's where he's winning me back over for next season now.
I hear that. My only thing is, like, look, if you finished 4th last season, right, and you had an amazing season last season, and this season you finished 6th, and you were bottom of your Champions League group, right? That's just like what it is, isn't it? Unfortunately, you have to look at it. It's a step back. It's not a step forward. That's the first thing. Second of all, we are sleeping on Aston Villa. Because to me, unfortunately, I think Emery's a better manager than Eddie Howe. I genuinely think Emery's a better manager than Eddie Howe. You don't think so?
That's harsh.
What do you think?
It's very harsh.
I don't think it's
You don't
harsh.
think so?
In terms of
No, I'm saying
he's won more, hasn't he?
I don't think it's harsh at all. Emery's won
more. So
but even with what he's doing with Villa right now, like, we just did a double over this Arsenal. This is the best Arsenal we've seen in 20 years, and he's just done a double. I'm sorry, I don't want to rub it in, but it's the facts.
Before we move past it, man. I thought we were talking about something else.
6 points he took off of them. Do you see what Arsenal did to Newcastle?
They win a trophy this year as well.
That Arsenal and Newcastle game was one of the most destroying games I saw this season with my own eyes, like, in terms of golf and clutch. Do you remember that game? Do you remember that game?
Yes.
It was bad.
But we've been talking about why, though. Because last season, when Newcastle had a full-strength team, as Jacob even said, we were a nightmare to play against. We're a different side this year.
Emery's achievements are obviously better than Eddie Howe's. Eddie Howe hasn't done a patch on what Emery's done in the game. But when you look at the job they've done at their respective team, both took over a club in the relegation
Eddie
zone.
Howe's done very well.
Aston Villa deserve to be in that relegation zone, in my opinion, with the players they had, a lot less than Newcastle deserve to be there. I think when you go pound for pound, the players and the depth you got in that squad and the quality just in general of the squad, I think that when Unai Emery took over Aston Villa, he had a better squad than Eddie Howe had taken over Newcastle. And then when you compare what they've done, it's over the course of the 2 seasons, pretty like for like, really. I know Unai Emery's on the better form this minute in time, but when you look at his first end of season position with Aston Villa, I think they've done about the same job.
I don't know, but I think that's harsh. You got Emery. I think Villa had the 3rd most points in the calendar year last year.
Yeah,
Emery has been amazing.
Let's give it a vote before we round this up, because I want to know next season. And this isn't, we don't know what the hell's going to happen in the transfer market, but just for the fun of it, who finishes higher out of the 3 managers that we've talked about here? Starting with you, mate.
I'm going to go Eddie Howe.
Craig, obviously. Big Ange.
I'm going to go Ange. I'm going to back him.
Jacob?
I think I'm going to say Emery, I really am. Like, I just think they've got a really fucking good squad.
Yep.
They've got a really good squad.
I feel like Emery with Champions League football, which they will probably inevitably get at this stage, I think he'll find it more difficult that season. And then it's hard between the two. Do you know what? I'm going to stick my neck out. I'll go Howe again. He's performed miracles at Newcastle, and with the transfer window, and if you do get to keep those players, it could be.
What about you? I know. What about you? Would you reckon?
What were you going to say?
I'm completely, this is completely hypothetical, but sometimes I just get feelings about things, and I probably forget the times I'm not right. Always remember the times I'm right. I just really, really think that the restraints are going to be loosened on Newcastle. I think that you're going to be able to spend. I also don't think you're going to lose one of them 3 players that we spoke about, whether it's the Adidas kit deal or something like that. I think that it's going to get a lot more easy for Newcastle to manoeuvre their way around this next transfer window, and I think that's going to benefit you massively. So yeah,
if we lose Isak and then all of a sudden these transfer restrictions are really harsh, Emery. Yeah. But if all of a sudden Newcastle can continue and we keep those big players, I would stick with Howe.
If you look at the foundations, though, as football clubs, Spurs have got the best foundation out of those 3 football clubs. So it would be
for the FFP
it would be a disappointment if Ange didn't finish above both of those. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm interested to know. I think you've made a really good point in that. Whoever gets Champions League, it's going to be harder.
Can I just? People are going to hate me for this, but I'll stop myself from saying it all conversation. You may not have even named the manager that finishes the highest out of them 3 if we're writing off Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man City, because smart money would say, as chaotic as it's been and as bad as it's been, Chelsea are going to be a lot better next season. We're going to be a lot better, and I think we'll be a lot more closer to this conversation, if not at the top of it, and some people might think. That sounds mad.
Love that.
On the season we've had.
Love that.
Do you know what, though? And you're saying it sounds mad. The problem is like, there's just no data for me to look at and go, yeah, this is like, if you guys were linked with another manager and we knew who that was, I'd be like, oh, okay.
And that's exactly why I'd left it as the last little bit I was going to get into this conversation.
So you're not saying Poch. You said Chelsea. You didn't say Poch.
Chelsea. Because
if you're saying Poch, I'm like, I'm just not saying it. Nah. But if it's another manager, I think it's possible.
Can I also just add a final wild card into this? Can I just say that I do think Man United with Graham Potter, with a transfer window where they absolutely go for it, is a scary prospect.
Come on,
that's a sexy appointment.
Come on. In the first
Graham
season,
Potter.
mate, in Graham Potter's
I think
first
Graham
season,
Potter is going to prove everyone wrong.
I bet you that toxic fan base, the moment he loses a couple games, do what your fan base did to him.
I disagree.
And just put the pressure on him straight away.
I don't think Man United are that toxic. I think, if anything, I've been shocked at how delusional they've made it.
They have backed Ten Hag.
But Ten Hag has been shite for about a year.
No, but there's a reason. There's a reason they've done it with him, though. They've done it because they've been chopping and changing managers so much. They want to you want to be wrong and strong. Like, oh no, but this is the guy. Trust me. If they get rid of him and they bring Potter in, it's the same thing that happened at Chelsea. Potter's just, I don't know if it's the way he looks or how he acts. It's just so easy to start going, get him out of here as soon as they lose.
Sorry for the bomb, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you end up selling after Bruno and Isaac goes. I wouldn't be surprised if Son gets injured and you're fucked. I wouldn't be surprised if Bowley spunks a load of money on bad players again. I wouldn't be surprised if United end up sacking Potter at Christmas and then David Moyes and West Ham finish top of the lot. I honestly wouldn't.
No.